So anybody who knows me knows that there are two games from the start of this year that I have been absolutely frothing at the mouth for. The first is Project Cars, which I was fortunate enough to play a couple of weeks back, and the second one is Distance. Now, Distance is essentially the sequel to Nitronic Rush, which was a student project that ended up winning Game of the Year at DigiPen a couple of years ago, and from that, because of the success that the creators got, they formed their own studio called Refract Studios, and they've now fully fleshed out Nitronic Rush, which was a survival racer, into Distance. And Distance is fairly, you'll see it's kind of a lot of the same thing in terms of it's got a Tron-like sort of atmosphere. It's about racing really fast, surviving, getting past obstacles. You can build your own levels and things like that. But it also has a story mode, and that's what we'll be looking at today. We'll be going through the adventure mode, and also, just showing you the basics of how Distance actually functions. So, the opening intro kind of doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I don't know if it's trying to tell me that my car is an automaton, or it has some kind of sentient sort of life. It looks cool. It kind of looks a bit like what a modern Chevy would look like if it didn't suck. But, I'm not a cars person, so that's where we're at, though. You can see, obviously, this is beta 3058. There has been an update pushed out since this video was recorded. But largely, the adventure mode this is how, you start, like everyone else. Not a huge fan of the portals, though. They don't really work for me. So, Sector 15, kicking off the adventure mode. And you can see one of the things I got in here is I've got sort of the stylized outlines, and it gives it a bit more of a cel-shaded look. I'm not 100% sure on whether I really like this or not, and I'll change it over the course of the gameplay, as you see. But the controls are fairly basic. You drive with the arrow keys, and you essentially use shift to accelerate, or to boost rather. There's no controller support yet, but there will be at full release, which is kind of good, because especially with the rotating and the flipping and the flying, that make this game really sort of ideal for a controller with dual analog sticks. So essentially what you want to be doing is just boosting all the time. The green rings help you regenerate, and the trick is to either, if you can't get a green ring, see if you can do a backflip, or sort of wall run, or find some sort of, just essentially keeping your eyes out for whatever opportunities there are. But the art style is pretty neat. It's clean, it's cool. Even on this first one, you can see that there are a couple of different paths to take. The music fits. Get a bit of wall riding going on now. And that's also kind of important, because there are different modes. You can, instead of just going for straight survival, you can go for survival and stunts, or you can go for straight pure stunts. So that's first level, basic, drive forward, boost forward, don't run into things. Easy, right? Well, kinda. We'll see how it progresses. You can also go back and do time trials of everything that you've completed in the adventure mode. So, I love the way, especially how everything is telegraphed in this game. It is really vibrant, and it's kind of one of the things that always appealed to me. Even Nitronic Rush from the off, if you can go back, and that's a free to download game. It is a fairly short one, but I mean, you've got the same sort of principles. You're in this sort of almost, and I have no idea how I didn't die there, but I'm going to now, obviously. It's almost kind of like a very futuristic Burnout paradise, where the cars are they have lives of their own. And it's pretty cool. The driving mechanics are very loose. You can roll pretty much whenever. You know, this is not meant to be a simulation race. You're meant to have fun with it. And that's a good thing. I quite like how the lighting there just changed all. Got a nice hue of blue that picked up. Now, from what I understand, just from looking at the leaderboards, it should actually, that little fork in the road there, it should actually be possible to sort of flip and bounce from one path to the shorter, to the next one. Because I've seen, like, just in these opening couple of levels, like the fastest, like I've just clocked just over 2 minutes, I think 2 minutes 7 there. I think the first one, generally, if you just take it straight up, you're only looking at like about 1:40 or so. But like the top times are like 1:22, 1:20. It's ridiculous. So you'll see now actually what the game looks like without that sort of cel-shaded outlines. And it's nice, and it's got a different appeal of its own too. It sort of draws your attention more towards the car and more towards the background instead of the things in the immediate vicinity, like, you know, the track, because obviously all those lines are not as pronounced. And somehow surviving while effectively riding on my rooftop. But again, the third level here, and this one's, you know, full of purples. You go purples and whites. And it's one of the things I enjoy about Distance at the moment, is it's just so much fun to look at visually. It's really relaxing. It reminds me a lot of Wipeout without quite having that same sense of adrenaline. I mean, obviously you can probably get that through, because this has full Steam Workshop support, so you can get some fairly insane levels, and towards the end I'll show you a couple that I have. Oh, I just barely managed to avoid. Yeah, and actually interesting, if you do get hit by those little buzz saws there, it will cut off part of your car, but if you can manage to make it all the way to one of the sort of regeneration checkpoints, then it'll rebuild your car and you can keep going, which is just really cool. Of course, if you just run into it twice and you just get blown off the track, because you're missing half the car. Now note there, you could jump on the side and do a wall run if you wanted. Of course I didn't, because, you know, I'm not an expert in this game or anything. See the lasers there? And they have the same effect as the buzzsaws. Probably didn't need to jump, but, you know, why not? It's part of the fun. So in terms of what the actual story is, I have no humanly idea. I just seem to be driving to a point. I think this might actually be the level where it becomes apparent that there is some other kind of force at work here. And now I'm like missing the entire top half of my car. But you saw there, you know, as long as you do make it to that checkpoint, you will get back. And it's nice that the game is so forgiving, because you want to be able to enjoy it, really. So these floating tubes, they're essentially the same they work the same as the regeneration ones. While you're flying, you're overheating constantly, as opposed to when you're on the track or road, I suppose. I somehow managed to do sort of like a backflip off the edge of the buzzsaw there. But yeah, so when you're flying, you're overheating constantly. When you're on the road, you're only overheating if you happen to be using the boost. So and one of the things that I love is you can see there, just at the back end of it, the sort of the effect of the scraping on just that left-hand side that I'd lost from the lasers. It's a really neat, it's a neat little engine. I love the effects of it. One of the things that is kind of tricky, however, is, especially because this is all a keyboard, and it tends to happen if you ever go back and play any sort of racing games, or I've been playing a lot of Slipstream 5000 on the train recently, and kind of can be a similar thing when you're only moving laterally and then you want to go up or down. When you hit that space bar, it tends to, you kind of lose your sense of balance a bit, and you veer off high into the air or much lower than you're anticipating. And meanwhile, I'm somehow here struggling to stay alive. But yeah, that's a neat thing. If you like fly off to one corner, you can come through the left, or you can go through the middle if you want. The opening levels are designed pretty well, I think. Except for that part where I kind of didn't really react quickly enough. But that's one of the nice things, is that if you are sharp enough to read the track far forward enough, then you can do little things like that. You can skip around the corner. And so it feels like, as long as you're aware enough, the game will reward you. Although there are small points with the design that you kind of, like there, I didn't know I was sort of jumping into lunar gravity. And the same sort of thing applies there. You could see the first time that there was a roof, and you can actually see now that you're essentially running underneath the track that you're on. Almost. Interestingly enough, that it actually allowed me to go through the checkpoint, even though I got hit at the checkpoint. So one of the main appeals with Distance as well is that there is multiplayer also, and the multiplayer takes similar kind of forms. You can either just be going for straight up racing, or you can go for stunts and that sort of thing. Now, most of the servers are based in Europe. There doesn't seem to be Distance is still. The beta is not available. I have a Steam key. I'm playing it on Steam, obviously. You can see in the top right. But it's not immediately available if you're not a backer. And I had to wait months and months to get this. And there hasn't been any indication of when or if Distance will go into an early access program. And we can see here now, I've just turned the stylized outlines back on. And now I've just been teleported by some sort of mad thing. And somehow managed to survive with about a fraction of a car left. And you can kind of see the appeal of the stylized outlines here, although it's much more... It's... Yeah, see, I don't know if I like it. I don't know if... Because the cel-shadedness of it all reminds me too much of Borderlands. I don't know if that's the kind of feeling I want Distance to have. And so I think this will probably be the last time I turn it off. Or last time I switch, I should say. And film noir is kind of, well, it's noir. Not really my thing personally, but it's nice. It's, if you want it, it's there. And you can see now that with it off, you know, it's a lot cleaner of a look. Of course, the one advantage of having those outlines on is it does give you, if there are a lot of obstacles in the way, it does make them more apparent, and that's, you know, just because of the nature of it, because it draws your eye to those things. Now, I don't know if you can drop and actually run over the edge there. Probably not. But the neat thing is you can sort of drop in and out of flight mode if you need to regenerate. Or you can just sort of repeatedly flip in the air to cool down wherever. And as you can see, as you get more used to it, you can get yourself out of some pretty tricky situations. Won't do a great deal for your time, but you know, you do feel pretty boss when that comes off. And yeah, there's no dodging this. I still don't know what it is. Got some Tron Legacy like orange going on here. Yeah, you can even be cheeky and sort of fly in and out of the final battle there. Now, you can actually still buy into the beta directly through Refract's website. I think it's Survive the Distance, but if you just Google Distance, the game will come up on it. And actually, as this video comes, I'll make sure I put an overlay up so you can see if you're interested. And it's only about $25, and I find if you can get, say, at least a good 8-10 hours, that's a pretty neat little trick there. As well as something that has Steam Workshop support and some pretty cool multiplayer. And it's worth noting that this will, or at least I believe this will support LAN, which is another cool thing. If for those that still like going to LANs, I know there's a lot of people on games.on.net that do, myself included. Then it's pretty decent value, I should say. I think there's even a version of Rainbow Road in this. Almost suddenly ran off the base of the wall. And it does actually look like it will allow you to do that. And it's worth noting too that if you nosedive a little too hard, you will crash. Although it is, I've found, and maybe that is because it's a beta, it's sometimes a little inconsistent in terms of what collisions will cause your car to explode and which ones it will happily weather. And you saw before when I came into contact with the underside of the car, underside of the track rather, that it just seemed like it just crumbled the second I hit it. Now this little bit is a little bit confusing because it says deploy side thrusters, but essentially I just found you just use the arrow keys and you go where you want. Also dying to like the most random little speck of space dust. I'm assuming it's kind of space dust debris sort of thing because, you know, it looks like there's a planet. It's not particularly well detailed, but, you know, it is there. But this little moment here reminds me of the film Gravity. It's just nice to have that little bit of solace. And it's interesting as well that because of whatever rules that they decided to apply, that you don't have to worry about overheating. Now this is the first one where the game essentially teaches you to start jumping onto other walls, even though if you've been, you know, keeping an eye out, and there are plenty of opportunities to do this. Somehow I didn't nosedive into the pillar there. But it is worth saying, it will take a small amount of time to get used to the weight of the rotation. It's not an instantaneous thing. And also for some reason, I seem to remember having trouble with this segment. I think it might have been an earlier playthrough, because I just kept mistiming the jump and ended up hitting that barrier repeatedly and trying to be a little too cute. Now, some of the other things worth mentioning about distance while we're here is, first of all, that I am obviously playing this on Windows, again, as you can see from the top right, but there are already Mac and Linux builds out there straight away, which is, you know, always good. It was never really something I used to appreciate before, but I became the owner of a MacBook Air recently, and I've been looking more and more into stuff that I can play on that Mac. I found actually the DOSBox has been doing that pretty well. And that would have been sick if I could have landed that. Actually, probably would have been able to if I didn't hold down the shift key repeatedly. And again, then you can sort of see that it's a bit illogical with how, you know, I swear one of those buildings should have blown me to bits. And somehow that only sliced off like the front edge of my wheel. Kind of felt like I was, you know, I ran right through the middle of it. So I don't know if that's a collision problem. Maybe it happened slightly fast and I didn't notice. But anyway, apart from online multiplayer, one of the cool things about Distance is it also has a split screen multiplayer, which you don't see a great deal of, particularly in PC games. And it's actually kind of cool if you're someone who is looking into gaming on the lounge, if you have a Steam box of your own. I know I had a former housemate of mine, we had a PC hooked up to ours and we were looking for lots of local screen multiplayer stuff that we can play. And so distance is, another one of those that you can add to the pot. And the level editor is already there as well, like I mentioned before. And you can just download stuff from Workshop straight away. There's already tons of levels out now in the beta, and there's no barriers to publishing. I kind of love when you go through that small restoration tube, or I don't know if it's tube, the segment we'll call it. You get that sort of that grainy look, and then as you clear out and you get back onto the track proper, you get sort of that clarity returns. It's pretty neat. And while I did tell you it was about $20, I should sort of clarify that. It's $25 if you want to buy the deluxe version, which will get you a key into the beta. If you just want to pre-order the game normally and get it when it comes out, get sort of a Steam key, and you will get a DRM free key as well, kind of like the Humble Bundle style. That will only set you back $15, and you can get both of those through the website. But if you do get the deluxe, apart from getting, I think you get the beta, you get a soundtrack as well, and I think you might even get an art book. A digital one. You're not going to get like sort of physical one shipped to you, but it is kind of cool, especially if you like these kinds of, you like having Tron on your wallpaper, that sort of thing. It's always neat. Actually, playing this reminds me too of how much I miss this kind of game. It's very... It feels very kind of old school. There's a... I'm trying to think of the name of it now. There was a racer... I think... I want to say 2000. I know it was roughly around the same year, or at least within the same 12 months. Within 12 months of Powerside coming out. And a Roll Cage, that's it. And it was kind of, you're running a multiplayer sort of straight up racer where you're going on along vibrant-ish, not as Tron-like as these tracks are, but you were in sort of a futuristic setting. But your car essentially, I'm trying to think it looked a bit like a buggy, and the wheels were sort of large enough that they covered both sides of the car. So if your car flipped, or if you sort of wanted to go on the sides up and down and sort of flip constantly like I'm trying to do, like a maniac just there, then you would just continue going straight ahead. And sort of the entire mechanic of the game, I thought almost for a second I might survive that one. But yeah, the entire mechanic was essentially this sort of constant speed, rolling, going forward, and navigating sort of the power-ups and the AI at the same time. And this bit kind of, and maybe it's just me, and I have no idea why that would have exploded just then, kind of makes me think that you should be able to jump that if maybe you do it early enough, or maybe if you jump and then fly. But as it turns out, you can just drive underneath, which I think after 3 times I'm just like, you know what, bugger it. cleanest jump there. But it was nice to see that the first one still had that arrow, and then after it, the game was just like, alright, you know what to do. But with this, it's just, hello, I've this big thing that just shows up out of nowhere, and I'm going to block your path. And I'm like, okay, no, I can't do that. Okay, try and juke him. Try and jump off the track. It's not going to work. And what I ended up settling with is, I think, just effectively stopping altogether. I don't know if it would let me fly it though. And that does actually curiously happen in some points where the game will just stop and not permit you to, fly, which is kind of frustrating. Sometimes it's obvious that you can't do it, you get a notification. Other times it's just like, nope, that's it. And I haven't really found a satisfactory way to smoothly progress through that in a way that's enjoyable. It just seems to me that the immediate solution is to just stop and go through, which is kind of, it's very odd because it's not really, it doesn't feel like the point of the game. The point of the game is to go as fast as possible, and that's sort of mechanic, just having this giant robot just plant itself on the road is detrimental to that, I think. But it is neat the way that the game is designed, how often your eyes play tricks on you. So it sort of looks here that it's not quite as safe as it is. But it is a beautiful colour though, as you go through. But the respawn point kind of leaves a little to be desired. They're sort of rotating and just blown into, I don't know where, somewhere. Is that blood in the ground? The sky? I have no idea what that is. But it is neat that you can see there briefly how you get that sort of compass direction on your car. Which is, and I don't know, why did I need to reset it? Yeah, which kind of gives you a bearing sometimes. So when, this brief moment where I've sort of flown up too far, it sort of triggers from just being a normal sort of, at the moment it's kind of nothing. And it just points to a big down arrow saying, you need to go down, you're going too high. So that's kind of useful if you sort of have the patience and time for it. Oh yeah. Now, I don't think I've ever actually been hit by lightning at any point playing this game. Like, not physically hit by lightning, but I mean in the game as well. And I wonder, and I don't know, because adventure mode isn't complete yet either, and one of the things is, you'll see me play through quite a lot, or what feels like quite a lot of the adventure mode, but there's no saving. That's kind of frustrating, actually. I don't know if you can, because as you play through adventure mode, each track that you progress through unlocks a track that you can play in a single player sort of setting, like in a time trial or something like that. Ooh, just get sliced up. So you would think that it would sort of save your progress and not force you to have to backtrack constantly. But, you know, this is a beta, so little things like that are gonna always happen. Unfortunately, good old trial and error there. No. And it's kind of interesting going back and watching over this, because this is also reminding me of another survival race which came out this year, and you can actually pick it up in the latest Humble Bundle with, I think, other games like Monaco, Gunpoint, Lufthouses. Trying to Gone Home's in there as well. And that's very much sort of a similar mechanic, and then you're just racing to survive. I think in that one the mechanic though is more about the sun is sort of your source of energy, and so if you don't chase and follow the sun, your plane sort of dies, and that's it. This kind seems to be more of a sort of don't die to the robots. And if anything, that's probably the weakness of distance as it stands, and as it will always be from, you know, what is the world I'm racing in? Why am I racing here? What am I doing? I mean, obviously, if you play it, it's not really going to be anything you care about. I mean, for my experience, it's more cathartic. It's quite relaxing, actually. But it is our job to sort of point out that. And it's kind of, see, that looks like a road that you can sort of run on. I feel a bit gutted that it wouldn't let me do that. But it certainly does have a very, if you ever remember playing Wipeout 2097, you know, the really, really old one, or if you have a PlayStation, Wipeout HD, which is one of my favourite races of all time. It's one of those things where once you really start to get the hang of it, and start to get the flow of the game, it picks up to a pace that is just a little bit absurd, but awesome at the same time. See, texture barrier. You gotta love it whenever you sort of glitch into a wall. And more texture bugs. Gotta love that little section there. It just looks so vibrant. It's quite particularly the multiplayer aspect of Distance, I think, is quite well equipped for YouTube. Especially small moments like this where I just somehow barely, almost looks like I should have been able to fit through that. I wonder if someone can recreate that. I'd probably be able to recreate my stupidity of thinking you can squeeze through that little guy, but one of the things you might not be able to tell on the video as well is that even on my rig, and I've got a pretty decent outfit. I need to format actually, which I'll probably do in the next few days, but I mean, I've got, we're talking like I've got overclocked i7 or 770K, I've got two 780s, far more RAM than I need, like 32 gig, a couple of SSDs, and this is still a small, not constantly and certainly not regularly, but there are a couple of frame rate drops, not massively, but we're talking like for me under 60 with, and considering the sort of the hardware that I'm sporting, that is, you do tend to notice that a bit, only because it's a bit rare, but they are making performance optimizations. They did made a string of ones in the recent update in last week, which this build wasn't recorded on. This video wasn't recorded on, I should say. But even then, for the most part, it's not like it's not stuttering or anything, or it didn't when I was playing and recording this at the same time. But I wouldn't say play this on a MacBook Air either. So that's a large part of the adventure mode. You can see here, we'll look at the sort of, you've got sprint, speed and style, which is essentially sprint, where you get bonuses for doing tricks as well, and you've got sort of the times, very Wipeout-esque there, that you're supposed to aim for, plus your PB, and it tracks that against the leaderboards as well. Should notice as well that there's all keyboard shortcuts. The menu doesn't support mouse at all, which I can't think of the last game in recent history that did that, but there it is. That's it's kind of annoying. It seems silly not to be able to support a mouse in your menu, but it's not really a big thing. You're racing with the keyboard anyway, so you're kind of used to it. So that is Distance, and I hope you enjoyed it. This has been Alex Walker from games.on.net, and we'll see you all next time.